Well, so I guess the question is, okay, so this snapshot in the time, you're you feel like your chops aren't up to speed, but you have ideas. So where did it go from there? You then form your own band, and so at that time you say, well, how are these guys player wise? Were Steve and these other guys in Volaré? Where were they at? Could they hang with Tyson and these other guys, or were they just more accepting, or how was it?
Um, I really felt like we were all kind of learning at the same. We were all kind of at the same level. Because Brandon and Ben and those guys were really. I don't know. They were all very virtuosic, and I wouldn't. Which was cool. I mean, I'm not. It's not a. I mean, I wanted to be like these guys, but like Steve and I were. So, well, Steve was very much self-taught, and I had this classical background that I wasn't real good at it, but I really, you know, well, I'll say this: at that point in time, even though I was really trying to get up to speed, like when um, when Ben, Tyson, and Brandon, um, when that group was starting my freshman year of college, they really kind of set the bar, and so I'm like, man, I'm gonna shred these tunes. So I would go and get I would get sheet music for Emerson, Lake and Palmer tunes and all this stuff, and I would shred all that stuff and really kind of. I was trying to learn all of that music so that I could,
Okay.
because I wanted to play it. I wanted to, even if I wasn't playing it with them. I just that was a so that was
So you
that.
started out. You
Oh,
started out with covers with Volaré, is that right? You started with covers.
we did kind of. I mean, we covered a couple of tunes. We weren't really like covering prog tunes, so it wasn't. We weren't like those guys. We really couldn't play that stuff like these guys could. I mean, these guys are like note for note playing, Inca Roads and all that kind of stuff. We were not that kind of a band. I mean, we were we were really just like a garage band that was really interested in prog music, prog rock.
Okay.
And
So
so what ended up happening is, see, Steve was a songwriter. He wrote a lot of stuff, and I was into writing too. And Brian, our drummer, I mean, Steve really deserves. I mean, those two guys really deserve equal credit as far as the compositions and any of the Volaré material. I mean, Steve and I ostensibly could be thought of as like the primary songwriters, just because we came up or hear these chord changes or hear these riffs or whatever. But Brian was sort of the he was the Derek Smalls of the group. He was like the lukewarm water, the sort of tempered the fire and the ice, and he helped out a lot with arrangement. And really, if he didn't like the piece, then he wouldn't play it, and that pretty much ruled the day. Brian doesn't like it, we can't play it. Next idea. So, um, so yeah, I would say from
so
the
it's pretty collaborative.
very yeah,
Sounds like it was pretty in the beginning. It was pretty collaborative.
very much so. I mean, really, the whole time. It started out. It started us. We did a lot of just jamming, like hit record and see what happens, and so we would, you know, I would say our material came from three sources, and that would be either stuff that I came up with out of whole cloth, some of Steve's stuff, or we would just hit record and jam in the rehearsal room and see what came up and kind of string the stuff together later. So
So I guess by the time I met you, that was probably towards the end of your time at UGA as a student. And I mean, I remember coming out and being, pretty impressed as far as what I saw. You guys by that point had a little bit of, I guess, a following. By that point,
yeah, if you include my parents and you, it wasn't too bad. We had we had a few friends and some fans in town. It was a pretty unique band, I think. I get,
but I mean, there was some notoriety. I think I know at a certain point you had a couple of albums that you created, and then I know at one point you were recognized by there was like some periodical that was like an international periodical that eventually recognized what you guys were doing. And
yeah, well, we did two records, 3 if you count the re-release of the first one, and we got, well, we had some recognition from people in the scene. It wasn't like, we never toured, we never opened up for any big names or anything, but we, in that tight little prog rock community, which at the time, the internet was sort of in its infancy, but the people who were sort of, I guess the folks that I think of as like the forerunners of like internet nerds. You remember in the 90s, it's like the only people who played around in the internet were just like dorks. And those guys loved us. So all respect to all the prog rock loving dorks out there.
Yeah, but there was some magazine or something that recognized you as something. I remember you talking about for like Canterbury, Prague, and it was somebody out of I want to say like somewhere off in, I don't know if it was in Eastern Europe or somewhere.
Yeah, there was a guy who wrote there's a guy, I can't remember his name, some fellow from Belgium, I think, who was writing a book on the history of Canterbury, the Canterbury scene, and he supposedly had an entry on us. We pop up in a couple of places. Actually, I was at the bookstore a couple of years ago, and I was thumbing through some encyclopedia of progressive rock bands, and we had an entry in there too. So that was kind of cool. Yeah, I mean we made our mark, I guess. It was the CD that we did, or the two or 3 products that we came out with did okay. We never made really any money on it, but there are a few people that know who we are, and that's pretty cool. So